I'm going to call the meeting to order. There was a Dawn, and I forget the other guys.
Same amount of time.
Good morning. If everyone will rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
We have something to add to the
Yes.
agenda,
Is
so
there-
I move that we amend the agenda to make that addition.
Okay, and how would you like to amend it?
To add a purchasing request for bulkhead
Point of order.
work.
We have to agree
We
to
have-
amend the agenda first.
Right.
I'm just informing you as to what I'm asking to have added.
Okay, so is there a motion to amend the agenda?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so, and I have an amendment to the agenda also. So Colette, you're going to want to amend the agenda under purchase request for bulkheading.
That's correct.
And I want to add to committee appointments, Roy Foreman as an appointment, in addition to William Bernard. Is there a motion to accept the amended agenda?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, we have approval of minutes. We need a motion to approve the minutes from the closed session on October 11th, 2021.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
And any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? I need an emotion to approve the meetings from the regular meeting of November 20th, 2021. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Need a motion for the closed session meeting for November 20th, 2021. Is there
So
a
moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And a motion to approve the special minute meeting from December 3rd, 2021.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
And any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion passed. All the minutes are approved. The only thing that I have under the president's remarks today, unfortunately, Michelle Bennett, our executive secretary, has tendered her resignation. And the board, most people probably don't know, but Michelle works very closely with the board in addition to working directly for the general manager. So we have a little something for Michelle. Yes. So I have to tell you too that this was donated by a fellow board member who, this is the business of theirs, so we might present you this. Show everybody. And in addition, there are two dollars with the Ocean Pines logo on it. Keep that out. We want to get a picture. So everybody, all the board members come up here, take a picture. You got everybody? 1, 2, Three. Okay, at this time, we're going to have a presentation regarding the recently completed Strategic Planning Committee survey results. Morning.
Good morning.
Drive the presentation. While I'm getting ready, I just want to thank Michelle for all her support and congratulate John on his retirement. You know, John, I retired, all going out on top just like you, and then I gave back to the community. So we have an opening. Okay. Got a lot of good questions. In all sincerity, Wade, you have done an awesome job. We'll start looking at the numbers, and thank you. Thank you. You and your team. Yep. Before we get started today, I guess supposed to talk into this. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
We're going to talk about the property owner survey that was, the deadline was November 15th. We had a couple straggling things that came through the mail. So November 18th, today's December 11th. We wanted to give you a top line summary and just want to thank my committee for all their work. Want to thank the board support, particularly Colette, who's our liaison. Thank the our people on our committee like Josh and Steve and Julia from John's team that have helped out. But overall, again, this is a top line summary. I think I'll hold the comments, or I don't even know what the Robert's rules of order are, but we'll hold for questions to the end from the board if that's okay. So here we go. What we're going to cover today is one slide on the purpose and objectives of the survey. Get into a little bit of survey stats, the meaning of what I have, and it's probably about a 15, 17 slide presentation. Talk about the summary of the results, and then next steps and timing, and leave it open for questions and answers. So these were our objectives of the survey. We're working on a strategic plan, a long-range plan for Ocean Pines, and we wanted to really look at overall satisfaction. Number one, are people satisfied? Number two, what is most important to the property owners, and how is Ocean Pines doing against what's important? Third, relative importance of core values. And fourth, feedback on key issues, a variety of issues that were uncovered in doing our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis. So it's a mishmash of a couple different topics near the end. Again, I just want to thank, the headline here is to thank the property owners for the tremendous engagement. Our goal was to get to 1,000 completed responses. You see there in bold, we got 1,838. We wanted to get a mix of full-time residents and part-time residents. We exceeded those objectives. The reason that we wanted 1,000, it gives us plus or minus 3% accuracy. You know, you see a lot of national polling done. They do 1,000. We have 1,800 just in the Pines. So that's tremendous engagement of the property owners that want to have a say in the matter. One of the things that really hit me was we had a gentleman that's in the community that's blind that couldn't fill out the survey. And he called in and said he wanted to get his voice heard, and I took his survey over the phone, and he couldn't have been more appreciative. So there's a lot of people that are in different situations, a good diversity of situations, that just want to have a voice in the future of Ocean Pines. Anyway, male, female, slightly higher female participation. And we did have 6 to 7% that decided that they prefer not to answer. So, and then online or hard copy. We really expected a lot more hard copy surveys to be completed. We had put them throughout the community, made them easily available if people called in, but we only really had 65 hard copies. That's good news in the sense that it was a lot easier to tabulate, when you completed the survey online. So a little bit too much information. So overall, thanks Ocean Pines for the tremendous engagement. As far as the age of respondents, kind of a bell curve on the left, with the middle of the bell curve being 61 to 70. So maybe slightly older, but probably similar to our property owner demographics. Our committee is going to be looking at census data in that, but census data doesn't give you property owners. There's other things that we can look into to try to really look at, does this truly represent the community? But in general, for now, this is what the demographics were of the survey. This first headline, if you remember, our first objective was overall satisfaction. You know, you hear a lot of different things in the papers, and I appreciate the press support of our efforts on the committee, but you know, you hear things on social media, but overall, Ocean Pines residents are very satisfied and are very likely to recommend Ocean Pines to others. As far as the stats that support that, if you look at these numbers, again, a little bit of a bell curve. And in most of the reports, it's a 1 to 5 basis, with 5 in this case being extremely satisfied, and then a number 1 would be not satisfied at all. So overall, 95% were positive. So they either answered somewhat satisfied, very satisfied, or extremely satisfied. I happen to teach marketing research at Salisbury. And you want to look at, ideally, the top 2 boxes. So 68.5% were very positive. They're either very satisfied or extremely satisfied. So there's a couple different ways you look at the numbers, but my overall takeaway, the community's overall takeaway, is Ocean Pines residents are very happy in general. There are a couple percent down at the bottom end that aren't happy, but overall, the numbers speak for themselves. In addition, you probably have filled out surveys, or at least been asked to take a survey. In all these cases, the question is going to be at the top that was asked, a specific question, and then the headline at the bottom, some stats in the middle. So this is called kind of an NPS Net Promoter Score. And a lot of times, I know when I used to rent a car when I was working in business, you get an email within 5 minutes of closing out. You know, how likely would you be to recommend Hertz to a friend or a colleague? That's what this is. So the question was, all things considered, how likely would you recommend Ocean Pines as a place to live to a friend or colleague? 83%. This was just a simple sliding scale. So 83%, top score was 100, would recommend Ocean Pines as a place to live. So again, another support of how much people really like Ocean Pines. Not to say they don't have opinions on things and want things improved, but overall, very positive from the committee's perspective. Second objective was, what is most important to Ocean Pines residents, and how is Ocean Pines doing? So what's most important to residents, again, based on 1,800 responses, 1,838 was safety, and this is in the order: safety, maintenance of infrastructure, and community appearance were the top 3 that were most important to property owners. The biggest gap was in maintenance of infrastructure. So that's the headline. Here's the stats. So again, most of the slides from here on out will look very similar. So the question was, what is most important here? The question is there, ranking of not important at all, 1, 5, extremely important. And again, if you look at, number 1, safety, 4.58 rated it, or that was the average score out of 5. So very important. And then if you look at the top 2 box, the people that said either very important or extremely important, 95%, 95.2% said it was extremely important. So no doubt, safety is the number 1. And the way we looked at this is weighted average will tell you priorities. And then on the right, when you look at the top 2 box, will tell you kind of relative strength of the voting. So safety, maintenance of infrastructure, and community appearance, number 1, 2, and 3. Then a little bit of a slight drop off. Of course, assessment fee value for the money. So what you're getting for your assessment fee is going to be important. And then Ocean Pines overall customer service. And that was a general comment. We want to look at overall customer service, and it probably wasn't as specific as it could be, but it was ranked number 5. It's something that we want to get better at. I think the 800 number and the email is a step in the right direction to respond better and faster. Again, keep in mind, this was taken, there was a lot of things going on in Ocean Pines during this time. We're in the middle of a pandemic, but this was the top 3. This is what's the most important. So now we'll look at how's Ocean Pines doing. So the headline there was safety was rated as slightly above expectations. All other top 4 areas are meeting expectations. So going across the top, safety, importance at 4.58, satisfaction
3.83. So I would say very satisfied if you round that up to 4. Not extremely, we're not doing an extreme job on that, but they rated it as very good. And then only 58% were that top 2 box, either very or extremely, they felt we were exceeding expectations. Important to point out, it could be a communication. I mean, it's not necessarily, you always say perception's reality. Well, you can over-communicate certain things that can influence these results. So our committee has talked a lot about, a lot of people might not be aware. They might not be living here full time. They're not aware of, that we're number 1 or 2 community, whatever it is, in Maryland in our safety. So some of it just could be simply communications. Maintenance of infrastructure you see at 2.78, the lowest score here. Community appearance and aesthetics. Again, we're not going to get into these. I just want to look at the top ones. Assessment fee value for the money at 2.95. And Ocean Pines customer service at 3.15. My experience, and I worked at Kraft Hershey, Purdue Farms, did a lot of research. It's hard to ask people how they feel about price. When you ask somebody, you feel you paid a fair price for your Apple life? People say, no, I paid too much. So assessment fee value for the money at 2.95, 3.0, right in there, that's not too bad. I mean, that, you have to put it in context of nobody's ever going to say you should charge me more. But these are the numbers. So it is important at 4.18. And, in general, we're doing pretty good at that. And then Ocean Pines customer service. So now I'm going to look at the gaps. So we said what was important. And then we gave you the scores in the middle here about satisfaction. And maintenance infrastructure has the biggest gap. So we all know that we have a 50-year-old community. There's a lot of work to be done with drainage and road maintenance, bridge maintenance, bulkheads. But that was the biggest gap at 1.71. So the difference between what was important and whether people are satisfied with how we're doing. Secondly, assessment fee value for the money. We always need to be aware. We always need to control that if we can, control our expenses as much as possible. So that was number 2, but a pretty big drop off. And then number 3 was community appearance and aesthetics. So continue to invest in the community and continue to make it, look as good as possible. So those were the top 3 as far as the gaps. So again, as a strategic plan, we're not there yet, but obviously one of the strategic imperatives will be continue to invest heavily in infrastructure. You notice amenities aren't up here. Amenities didn't make the top 5. It was interesting to me. People love the amenities. A lot of people don't use the amenities, but you'll see later on, they supported continual investment in current amenities as opposed to investing in new amenities. So, but I just try to look at the top 5 for this. You want to prioritize your work going forward. Core values. So this is something the committee looked at. We benchmarked some other communities. Several other communities, including Berlin town, had core values. And we wanted to look at this, and Helen Johnson, who's here from the committee, did a lot of work on this, did a lot of research, and we ended up fielding this question. So at the top of the page was Ocean Pines is considering developing a set of core values that will serve as principles and help guide future communication, decision-making, and culture for the community. Please indicate which of the following. So again, on the 1 to 5, 1 is not important, 5 is important. All of them were high. Integrity and accountability were a little bit higher. And again, if you remember the top 2 box numbers, so again, above 80% on the top 2, 86.4, 82.2. But all of these numbers, I would say they're rated, very important and strong interest in core values or whatever. So there was no separation. We were looking at, do we establish 3 core values? Does one of these drop off? But all 4 that we tested or surveyed on were important. So pretty straightforward there. The last objective, if you remember, was feedback on key issues and opportunities. So there's no real summary here. It's kind of a mishmash of questions that we asked. So again, from the SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, we looked at some weaknesses that came up in various committees and throughout the community of what they identified as weakness. So these are listed in order. it's harder to make a conclusion on this, other than if you look at the weighted average ratings, they range from 4.43 down to 3.84. They're all pretty important. I mean, they all rated them pretty high. Although I tried to separate them, I don't think I put boxes around this one, I forget. The transparency, infrastructure, and collaboration were the top three. So the good news is transparency and collaboration don't cost a lot of money. Could be communication. I frankly have worked with the board a lot. I don't feel there's an issue with transparency, but the community did. Could be just increasing communication. I know on the agenda today is talking about, you know, opening up board meetings online. I mean, there's just different, maybe slight things that can be done. Anyway, long story short, infrastructure pops up again as an issue. Responsiveness of OPA to my request was ranked there as pretty important. And then other ones, environmental and sustainability efforts up there high. Enforcement of rules and regulations, again, high. And then board of directors continuity and consistency. A different question, just with 3-year terms and turnover there. I would again focus on the top 3 would be our recommendation. Another question we just asked was, please write your level of agreement with the following statements. Traffic on Route 589 is a concern, was the highest at 3.81. Again, not necessarily really high top 2 box at 62.5. And the second one, I support the use of electronic voting for board of directors and referendums. 3.75. So again, with 3 being average, or 3 being neutral, 4 being slightly agree, 5 being strongly agree. 3.75, 65% were very positive on the idea of using electronic voting for board of directors and referendum. I don't have the numbers here, but I would point out that there was probably 20% of residents that were extremely disagreeing with that. So you have to look at the positives, you have to look at the negatives. So if we decided to do anything on that, I would walk slowly. Maybe it's a hybrid approach like we did on this survey. We could have easily tracked homeowners' addresses, email addresses. There's ways to do it, but this was a survey. It wasn't an election. So we wanted to promote participation. We didn't want anybody thinking we were tracking their email addresses or anything like that. So there is ways to get around this. I don't know that I'd jump into moving extremely to everything electronic. I looked at this and said, if you remember the age of the people that filled this out were 61 to 70 was the highest number. They're pretty tech savvy. They're willing to do this, but I would walk slowly on that and look at the whole numbers. We're not making a recommendation on this yet. We have shared this information with the election committee, but there seemed to be more interest than not on moving forward. And again, maybe it's a hybrid approach. Again, premium, this is interesting. So we talked about pricing before, and number 3 is the premium paid for non-residents' use of amenities is too low. Of course, people are going to say that. These are residents and charge other people more. But it is something to be looked at. And I know each department is probably looking at that now, going through the budgeting process. I would say, it's just slightly above average and really didn't have a top 2 box. A lot of people probably didn't know. And actually, in this question, we had a box called no opinion. So we separated those results out. We could look at that. And then Ocean Pines, number 4, should invest in improving current amenities was number 4. Again, above average, but wasn't like, a 4 or 5, didn't make the highest numbers. And then an increased enforcement of covenant and regulations, 3.60. Again, I would say it's at the bottom of these statements here. Something to be considered. I know it's always up for discussion, but it wasn't like, 4.8 or, everybody wanted it. 54% felt pretty strongly or slightly or strongly that it's something that should be enforced. So kind of like 50-50, 54, 46. One of my last 2 or 3 slides, new or improved amenities and services, this is supported. If you look at the weighted averages here, they're neutral. They're right in the middle. Improved walking and bike paths was number 1 at 3.01, which is, I think, it was slightly interested, with only 36% at top 2 box. So my conclusion here was, in general, there was only lukewarm interest for any new or improved amenities. And the top 3 were walking and bike paths, fitness center, and improved street lighting. And I think the fitness center and improved street lighting were also part of the last survey, came up as one of the issues in addition to like MediaCom, which has been solved now, and a number of other things. So it's up there, but it's not like infrastructure. And then just to summarize again, Ocean Pines property owners are extremely satisfied. Safety, infrastructure, and community parents are very important. The biggest gap was in infrastructure, and there was probably some other areas that we could look at trying to improve and continue to move forward on. Values of accountability, integrity, collaboration, and sustainability were all very important. Transparency, infrastructure, and collaboration were the top 3 issues to focus on based on the negative side. And then solid support for electronic voting, but also some strong disagreement on moving forward. And then overall, a slight preference for improving amenities versus investing in new ones. And then finally, owners in general are against assessment fee increases, but feel fees for non-residents' use of amenities is too low. And that was these are kind of our 6 or 7 key takeaways. Our next steps are reviewing these results today with the board of directors. Hopefully there'll be some questions and additional. We want to really dig into part-time residents versus full-time residents, look at younger residents with families, and just look at the data a lot more over the next 2 months. But we are sharing it with the executive council, which is the heads of all the committees, next Thursday. We're going to include a summary of these results in the next newsletter, working with Josh. That will go out sometime in January. So we wanted to be transparent. We wanted to get these results out. So it'll be a written version of what we're talking about today. Like I said, we want to break out the data a lot more. And this is kind of the committee's, or at least my personal big priority, is to really dive into these numbers a lot more and see what else we can find out and support any requests from the board. Continue to work on strategic plan recommendation over the next few months. And this is a recommendation to the board that we actually share these results via town hall, probably in February, probably after the budgeting process or near the end of the budgeting process. Again, just to share it, it probably will be these slides and a few more, just to be completely transparent, and then eventually post all these results. Some of them are up there on the board document that was passed around for today, but it's hard to decipher what they mean. And then eventually post the full results on the survey. We're looking to try to complete the strategic plan recommendation by June, which will hopefully impact the future budgets and budgeting plans, and present the recommendation to the board. I will tell you that I like to under-promise and over-deliver. So hopefully we can beat those dates, but that's what we're committing to today. And thank you for your time. With that, I'll open up to questions, comments, disagreements, conflict, or any feedback that anybody has. Yes.
Freddie, first of all, thank you. Thanks to the committee for a lot of work went into this, and I think the results are, quite frankly, interesting. You don't have to answer this now, but I took a note on one of the things you'd mentioned. It was a high priority. It was the integrity issue. So I guess my question would be, how do you measure, how do you evaluate, and then obviously report on integrity to tracking it? You don't have to answer it now, but it's something that I'd probably throw back to the committee and say, hey, let's try to understand how we would, again, evaluate that so we could make a decision if we had to.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to pay $5 for anybody has a question. Thank you. That's a good one. That's a good one. Because that was the one area that we didn't actually spell out, at least in this presentation, what the definition of integrity was. We included it on the survey. But it's a good point. And how do we measure? How do we know we're doing better at that?
Are there any other questions? Bernie, I wanted to thank you too. You and your committee have done an excellent job. This is I know when you made this presentation, we didn't want this to be like the last one that was done. That, quite honestly, I don't think was worth a whole lot. This, I think, is more valuable. And I want to thank you on behalf of the board, and thank your committee also.
Thank you.
Hey, John, a GM report.
Okay, thank you, Larry. Just give me a second. Okay, we always like to start off with some scenes or pictures of what's going on. Some of the stuff, we are working on signs as part of the beautification. There's some of the signs that we've replaced or added over the last couple of weeks or months, and then somebody doing the Christmas tree, but turn the page. Okay, so just like all the time, just wanted to list all the items that Linda and myself will update the association and the board on today. A lot of the topics, some of them came up at the last board meeting, and I know some of them are for discussion today. So we just want to give some history, some background, and where we are on all those. Okay, so I'll start off, and then Linda will follow up. So the good news is, and I have come several times the last couple of months, and I'm glad that this happened. We finally received the permit for the Pickleball Courts for the Racket Center. So I am excited about that. As soon as we received it, I know that Eddie was already working on, which is stated there, getting the contractors. So this is something that was in the budget for this year. We just needed that permit, which now we received. We will go forward based upon the approvals that us have received from the board in the past. Okay. All right, so the biggest thing right now in this time of the year is the proposed budget process, and I have been updating the board and everybody on where we're at. The good news is that we are actually ahead of schedule. Last night, Steve sent me this summary, which I'll talk about a little bit today, where we're at, so I can get an idea and update everybody. But the binders will go as committed to the B&F committee before the holiday. And everybody else. So there'll be plenty of time for everybody to review it. So just to go through again, what we've been going through is we received guidance from B&F as usual. Can you just go back, please? Assigned a leader, met with all department heads, obviously Linda and Steve, of course, who are doing a fabulous job and certainly helping me out and freeing me up for other work. The DMA Light Study, which we updated the board, B&F got recommendations, which certainly helped me and everybody else put together the proposed budget. Everything was reviewed with all department heads, and we received sign-off from all. The agenda and dates are being prepared. Actually, I did get a request yesterday. Linda's working on that. We have the committed dates with B&F. I think it's 4, 5, and 6, Linda. And then she's trying to lock down with the board, probably in the same sequence as last year. Okay, turn the page. Okay, so this is actually the schedule that I really want to go through with everybody today. This is how I will approach the budget, how I will present it overall, and then B&F will review and analyze and question along with the board with all the department heads. But I just wanted to highlight where we're at. There are headwinds, just like in any year, but it just seemed to me now that there are some big ones. And I just wanted to highlight this to everybody. So inflation, and if we're all following what's going on with the economy and everything else, inflation has raised its head again, and it certainly will affect our budget, a proposed budget. I am trying to break out the effect of inflation on our departments. Each department head tried to give me some guidance on that so I can break it out so you can just get a feel of that. Minimum wage, as we all know, that's statutory, and minimum wage is going up, and we have to obviously budget for that. I believe it goes from, what is it, Linda, $11.75 to $12.50. So that's something that you would expect, but again, it's statutory. It's a big number for us. It's a big number for aquatics, for public works, but overall big number on the Eastern Shore and especially Ocean Pines. Mark to market, and we've had this before. So even with the minimum wage, we've had challenges with hiring and filling positions as well as keeping individuals. So not only that minimum wage, which we will break out and show everybody and quantify what the effect is on the proposed budget, we will also on this mark to market where we see that, okay, even if minimum wage is $12.50, we may not be able to staff those positions unless we pay somewhere from 14 to 16. So I will break that out. The team will, Linda and Steve. Steve's working on it as we speak. Proposed legislation. So I did receive, actually Steve had been on this. We had been talking about it, and then I did receive some information from our law firm, and thank you to them also. But there is some proposed legislation, possibly not this current calendar year, but the next one, where I guess there is legislation for homeowners associations for reserves. From what I've read, what I've seen in my feelings on it, we're there. But of course, that'll be something up for review and certainly something for the board and BNF and for Steve and Linda and myself to discuss during this proposed budget. But it will have an impact on our assessment. Insurance premiums, well,
Hey, John, excuse me. Let me just elaborate a little bit on that, if you don't mind. This, just to give the community a little more information on this proposed legislation. Last year, the legislation was introduced into the House in the state of Maryland, requiring homeowners associations, condo associations, to get a survey done of all their equipment, just as we have done. John talked about the DMA light, and to just determine what your reserves should be as a community. The legislation made it mandatory for communities to comply with the survey that was completed regarding your reserves. Now, it didn't pass last year, but Montgomery County and Prince George's County basically instituted the legislation on their own. Now, fortunately for Ocean Pines, we're ahead of the curve here. The only difference is we don't know, in fact, what the legislation will require. So, for example, if our reserves are sitting at $6 or $7 million, our replacement reserve for $6 or $7 million, and the legislation requires it to be some percentage that drives it up to, say, $8 or $9 million, then we have to make the adjustments to get to that number. That's the way I understand the legislation. And we won't have time, we won't have years to get it adjusted. So it could have an impact on the budget, as John said, and assessments going forward. So it's not likely, it's my understanding that the legislation will be reintroduced in January. Whether it passes or not is another story. It shouldn't have an effect on this year's budget, but it's something that the board and budget and finance and the general manager are going to need to keep a close eye on. And I wanted to get that information out to the community. So, if in fact we get a year or 2 years down the road and this has an impact, I want to make sure everybody hears that this could be coming. John?
Okay. All right, so let me just skip my bearings. Okay, so Larry talked about that proposal, and I'm going to talk a little more about that. So the insurance premiums, we had this last year. We'd probably have it every year, and everybody has it, whether it's your own home or liability or anything like that. The situation with this is what we found last year, Steve and I, is we're doing the budget now, and we have to pretty much, I'm not going to say guess, but guesstimate, and we're working with our insurance agents or whatever to try to get an understanding what it is. But their whole review and everything will be probably towards the end of February. So we are working with them on that. We have some calls in to try to get a good number on that. They're telling us that the insurance premiums at this stage to figure 10 to 12% increase. But again, I know what happened. I know what the drill was last year. I'm hoping that'll come in by the time we finish in February. Okay, so those are the headwinds. We will break that out. In fact, I'm looking at it as I speak to everybody on what the effect will be on the budget. The tailwinds. Now, we certainly do have tailwinds, and that's a good thing. So improved performance in amenities and departments. So, as I've reported every month, and Linda will report today, we are favorable. We have increased revenues, organic revenues. We've cut expenses. We've reallocated. We've rebalanced. and it has a good effect on the budget. And I will extrapolate, I will highlight that to everybody. We do have surplus. We have surplus that we recognized last year. And last year I spoke to everybody during the process and said, at this stage, it's not realized, even though we're reporting it, and we still had 4 or 5 months to go, and we know the effect of what weather or anything else could have on our financials. With that said, and tying into what I talked about above with the proposed legislation and how I plan on addressing this and presenting it to everybody, is this. We do have surplus. We're running a surplus this year. And that's something we can certainly look at, and there's all different options, and that'll be presented, whether we want to lower the assessment for it or to kind of start funding for that proposed legislation. And I certainly, that will be broken out, and I will present that along with Linda and with Steve so that the whole association and this board can see all the pieces, and we can certainly address that proposed legislation. So these are big items. Just to go back up top, I kind of lost my little bit focus there, but the inflation, anytime you have inflation, we really should look at the pricing. And I did just see in the survey that obviously the association, I've seen this for years, they're okay with pricing increases for non-members of the association. But we do have to look at it because a lot of those items there show that the cost or the expenses in our amenities is going up. And then obviously there should be an offset. So we will present that. It will all be broken out for the BNF and for the board to review. All right, turn the page. Okay, so I believe in the last board meeting, and we were working on this to begin with. This is a very good project being led by Josh Davis, myself, and among others. So we did have some questions that I think it may be somebody will have at a discussion point today, one of the board members. So I wanted to put some information, some detail out there. So we do in the boardroom have a hybrid video audio system where we can have everything videoed and the association can see everything as we do it. We used it for the budget process last year, and I thought it was great. So the question comes up, can we do this in a big room, a room like this, so that we can have the video live? So here's what we're doing. Here's what we've done so far. So you have the objective, the actions taken, reached out to Mid-South, audio preferred vendor who already installed a successful hybrid meeting system in the administration boardroom, as I mentioned. Tested, it's great. MSA will set up a custom table with built-in microphone and install cameras and integrate existing audio system to work with Microsoft Teams. So one of the items, and Josh has pointed this out, is in the boardroom, I have a set table. We have everything set and everything is set up, and you don't have to move it, unplug it, and reset it up. So we're trying to put that together so that we can do it in this room. We, as you've heard in other meetings, we are going to enclose this room. There'll be glass doors. There'll be a wall. This temporary closet here will be closed in. So we're hoping to put together some type of table that we can access this without a lot of setting up and unsetting up. All right. So the cost, we always want to know what the cost is. So the two rooms we're looking at as possible alternatives is the Assateague room and the clubhouse meeting room, which is this. So the Assateague room, so the estimates on this whole hybrid system, we have met with them. Again, we're at a high level stage, but we've done this before and we've looked at it, Josh. The estimate's around $15,000 for all the equipment without the projector and the screen. So obviously in this room, the clubhouse room, we have it. So for this room, if we were to do it, we're estimating somewhere in that ballpark of $15,000. The Assateague room, we would need to include the projector and screen, which I believe Josh is estimating somewhere around, just give me a nod, 10 to 15,000 on the 15, towards the 15. That's what this whole setup here cost. So to do it here is 15, to do it in the other place, 30. What we also recommend, and we're working with Mid-South, is some type of acoustic panels for in here. We have estimates on that also for the entire building, but we're going to go back to Mid-South. I'd like to try, and I think Josh agrees with me, I'd like to try this room first and build from it. I don't want to go all in, but we'll do it in stages to see how it works. So that could be anywhere for just this room, say $4,000 to $8,000 just for this room. Yeah. Okay, recommendation to move forward with MSA. So that's the recommendation from the team. We will continue on this. Obviously, because it's 15,000 plus, unless I get it under, I would need board approval. All right, so I guess this will be discussed later. Right, Northgate Bridge, that's been in the paper, certainly came up, I guess, in public comments or whatever in the last board meeting, and rightfully so. So what I did say at the last meeting is try to explain what we had in process. We did have an accident on the bridge, which, by the way, the other morning, whether it was yesterday or the morning before, we had another accident in the same exact spot, and I just want to talk a little bit about it. But in the last board meeting, what I said I would do is come forward with what we're trying to do to jazz it up for the holidays. And I guess this guard shack was a big item that everybody was talking about. So I'm coming back with options on that to see what the board, wants to do on it, with a recommendation, of course, from me and the staff. So we did decorate for the holidays. If you've been through there, you can see it, and we're going to continue to. They were putting the garland up yesterday, as we talked about. The tree is in the guardhouse, and there'll be other Christmas holiday lights that they're putting up. We did power wash it. There was a little delay because of the last accident. I am getting some positive feedback on that. As you know, on the last one, I've over the course of the year, I've recommended that we just power wash that bridge. We definitely do not paint it, but again, if I'm tasked, so be it, as well as staining. So here's the estimates on the guard shack and what I've heard, some feedback over the years, and certainly last month. To remove the guard shack completely. So to remove it, and we can do this in-house, our rough estimate is somewhere around $2,500, but that would be all internal with Public Works and certainly covered by the budget. To repair and maintain, which would be leaving it in the same place. And obviously it does need some work and jazzing up. $2,500. I know Josette, in the past, her and her husband have come in and offered their services as volunteers to help any way they can to improve the bridge. So maybe if that's the way we want to go, I would like if Josette would help out. And she has told me many times, absolutely, and I do appreciate that. The other one, what I heard, and I hadn't heard this before, but to move this iconic structure to the White Horse Park. So sounds good, and I'm not saying not to do it. It's not my recommendation, but they're saying to move it there and I guess put in relics and other memorabilia of Ocean Pines. That would probably be $12,000, and that might even be the low end to move it. To move that, they need some crane structure, some type of structure to move it out of there. Definitely repairs, and we don't know what would happen while we move it. One of the biggest costs, if I peel that back, is the $5,000. And again, maybe we look at that differently, but the $5,000 estimate I got for a pad to put it on in White Horse Park. So those are the three options. Those are the costs, again, high level. My recommendation, team recommendation, is to repair and maintain in current position. Turn the page. Okay, so there's our bridge. You can see the top left. I believe the bottom right is after. So you can see once you power wash this bridge, it does look, in my eyes, but again, we get 10 different people, get different opinions, but you can see we're cleaning it up. The guard shack, and I don't think I have a picture of it, but definitely needs work. Turn the page. Okay, so we just got these yesterday. I did meet with the company. We brought in one of the electrical local companies, and we'll reach out to more. But this is a company that has done work with us in the past. We're all familiar with them. And I did say I would try to have something for this meeting today, and I do. So the thoughts are, again, high level, and they're going to develop some type of systematic or picture for us so you can fully see this in an example. So what the recommendation is, at the four corners of the bridge, to have spotlights, which you see in the top left. Those are kind of those type of lights, which would light up the bridge as well as light up better the approach on both ends of the bridge, which I think has some effect on the amount of accidents we're having. I think there's other reasons also. Certainly, I believe it. But we're looking at those four poles. I'll have better pictures for next time with these spotlights on it. And then on the bridge, as you have today, those iconic white bulbs or whatever, which apparently well before me they could not replace. They don't make them anymore, but they're recommending type of lights that you see in the right corner. And I just received this last night, and thank you to Michelle and everybody else that put this together for me. So we're looking at something like that, and those would be more like to light up the walkways and stuff. So that's where we're at. Again, there'll be more work on this and certainly more presentation. And I'd like to have come in here with more options or whomever. Turn the page. Okay, so the other thing was, I think this came up last time, the board did receive some emails on I guess, the signs for the different locations within Ocean Pines. And certainly Teal Bay came up. So there are all different signs, different neighborhoods or whatever, and depending on where you live, sometimes that association takes care of the sign themselves. Anywhere where there's this texture 111, obviously we maintain. So there's your before and after they started doing it. The recommendation was that color, and looks nice to me. Turn the page. Okay, so the bulkheads, and actually I guess we'll come forward with some type of bid sheet in the next section, but what I had been asked to do, which I was in the process of doing, but I don't think we need it anymore, but Larry had said to me to break it out, which I did, but I still wanted to show it. So this is the same drill as last year. I'm coming forward to the board. We're coming forward to the board asking for an early approval on the bulkhead work that we would do in the next fiscal year. We did it last year. We were successful. We locked in a nice price, and I believe we had savings. I'm hoping, and I did reach out to several board members to tell them, because I think we were a little late getting this in. But so here it is. So we're looking at, and we'll talk about the bid process, but a price of somewhere around $850,000. We are negotiating on the upfront deposit. I did have to do it. We did have to do it last year. We're working on that, but this is what I'm coming forward with, and we'll talk more about it later. I'll have Linda go through it with you. But there's some idea on where we're at. Turn the page and where we're doing it. All right, drainage project. I'm going to be hand off to Linda here. She did some nice work on this, summarizing it. But we did have the Bainbridge project, which was the filtration, which was that whole pond, which was completed. It was pretty much in budget. We had the grant, 400-something thousand in the budget. If you remember from last year, we had 300,000 in drainage that kind of tied into this for the section that we're working on now. But I'm going to let Linda certainly update you on it. But we're within budget and everything that we spoke to you about last year. There is a challenge that I believe we've corrected. Linda.
We've been having a few calls about this actually from residents in the area. The pipes were ordered. They're currently on site at Bainbridge. We've been coordinating with the Worcester County Department of Public Works to complete this phase of the project. And after several months, they did give us a quote of $76,230 to have the utility work relocated. But the portion of this project to do all the work is $297,000, which includes the work of above the utility work of the $76,000 plus additional $50,000 for the pipes for the utilities and $170,000 for the installation of the pipes. The material will arrive in about 3 months, and the work will be completed in early spring. But like he said earlier, it is well within our reserve budget of $350,000 for this fiscal year.
Go right.
Okay. CPI violations. We from the month of November, we had 72, and we complied out 28. So we still have 75 remaining. That does include the 43 that are illegal. And as of yesterday, the year to date, the inspectors had 557 total violations for the year. So that's pretty good. Okay, financials. Financials were favorable for $72,000 for the month of October. As you can see, the net revenues are $436,000 in budget. Current year, we're at $585,000. Expenses were favorable. We're unfavorable $77,000. Year to date, October 2021, we're favorable $1,337,000. For the year to date as of October 2021, expenses were favorable 150,000 and favorable 1,223,000 for revenue. Details for the month of October. As you can see, all the departments are favorable. Beach Club, unfortunately, just because of the revenue sharing and the accruable payables that we had to pay to Matt Ort. So that was the only downfall. But as far as everyone else, the maintenance repairs are down in Public Works for the year, and payroll expenses are down in both Public Works and Finance and Police. And for golf operations, the greens fees, we had a up of 36,000 for October. Moving forward to the year to date. Year to date, we're favorable, as you can see, of 1,373,300, with most of them golf operations and Public Works and admin, police. Favorable again for payroll cost. Aquatics, daily entries, and member dues for the year, and the revenue growth for the beach parking as well. The Clubhouse Grill and the Beach Club, the net revenues generated for Beach Club 106,000, and for Clubhouse Grill 118,000, which offset the wages and benefits for the year.
Let me just jump in. Okay. Thank you, Linda. So normally we would present a flash. Those were the October numbers that we've presented to BNF and everything. Steve is working on the flash. His team, the whole team is working on it. Probably the 13th workday is next week. Steve did say this morning, he told me to say that it's pretty much on track with budget. There's nothing material that would, in this month of November, that would possibly lower that. But again, he needs a little more time on in November. Okay, the other thing, this is a good time to just tie this in, and this will be quick, to tie this in with what I talked before about the proposed budget. So everything that we've been showing all year and even last year, and even if you strip out the PPP money, is that there is organic growth. We have increased revenue. We've decreased expenses. And if you go back to that reconciliation that I showed you earlier on the proposed budget, just to give you an idea and the way I present it when we do it and open up with is this. If we took everything that's going on here now and what this team has achieved over the 3 years and just put the headwinds and everything that is coming up, the assessment probably would have been reduced by $50 to $60. However, there are all those headwinds that will offset that. So right now we're looking at something on a slight increase, but we will break that all out. Okay, that's it. Larry, Doug.
Treasurer's report.
All right, next slide, please. So as you can tell, we're at 0.75% on return on investment. That is unchanged from last month. It's what the market's bearing right now, so hopefully we will rebound at some point, but that's where we are as of today. As of today, also at the end of October, $15.8 million in cash as compared to $16.8 last month. However, that's due to approved expenses that were done in the past 30 days. And as we do every month, you can see how that 15.8 is broken down, 7.1 in CDARS and 8.7 in other financial vehicles. Next slide, please. Let me stop right there. Normally, what you've seen in the past several months, and I mentioned it last month, that I've been tracking the assessment collections. And as of last month, if you'll recall, we reported that we had 99.69% of the outstanding assessment dollars collected. An interesting tidbit of information was Ruth Ann ran the same report, and as of this past year, our assessment dollars were $9.348 million. Well, as of right now, we've collected $9.359 million. So we say, well, how can you go over 100% worth of the assessments you collected? Well, the idea here is that money is still coming in from delinquent accounts. So they're still working on that. And as part of the responsibility of the treasurer and the board is that under Resolution F04, we will report on the process for collecting delinquent accounts and have that report ready. I believe it's got to be in March. So just a tidbit of information. So again, very good report on collecting the assessment dollars, and hopefully we can do some good in reducing the amount of delinquent accounts we have over the past several years. With this slide, not too much change from the previous month. The previous month's overall balance in the reserve fund was 7.6 million. We're down to 7.5 million, again tied into expenses that were approved by the board going forward. Next slide, please. So this is an interesting one because, again, if you recall the discussion earlier in this meeting regarding the legislation and having to maybe meet a requirement for having X amount of dollars in a reserve fund tied to the amount of your assets. We've had the only real increase is under the third item there, police vehicles. Last month it was 101,000. It's now 133. Obviously, that's due to the purchase of a vehicle hitting the books and showing up as an expense for this month. I will tie you down to the bottom right-hand corner where it's 5.484 million is the projected. Remember, this is a projection of where we believe the reserve study amount will be at the end of the fiscal year. As of last month, that number was 6.05. So is it a red flag? No, not yet, but it's a concern, especially tempered by the fact that we now have the pending legislation that may have an effect on what we need to keep as a reserve balance. So we'll certainly keep an eye on that. That's another area that we really need to stay focused on. And, again, as John had mentioned, if we're forced per legislation and law to have a certain amount of reserves available, clearly the only way to fund that will be through assessments. So again, we're watching that legislation very closely. Hopefully we'll be able to manage it. I suspect that it wouldn't happen. It's certainly not going to happen, this year, but into the next year, we'll need to make sure we do our due diligence in planning for that and making sure that should that legislation pass, that we have the right amount of dollars in our reserve funds. That's it.
All right, I'm going to open the floor to public comments. I'll remind you to give your name, address, and you have 5 minutes.
Good morning, Dave Tanner. I'm at 65 Skyline Court. I wanted to talk this morning a little bit about the proposal for the irrigation on the golf course in terms of purchasing the new sprinkler system. And it's what's particularly disturbing about this, and actually relates to the slides that we just saw regarding transparency, is what this is going to cost the members here in Ocean Pines. I've heard a lot about, it's only going to be this much per customer or whatever because other stuff's dropping off, or the county's paying for it. No, the county is not paying for it. We are paying for it. And the figure is not 3.4 million, as we've all been told, okay? The figure is 4.4 million. 4.4 million that is going to have to be paid by the association members here, because all of it is coming back on as a tax on our water bill. So instead of paying for it through our assessment, we are going to have it on our water bill for the next 15 years. 4.4 million for an irrigation system that we do not need. Okay? To burden the association with this, I think, is ridiculous. It's not going through the board. It is going through the board. If the board approves this, the county's going to do it. Okay? Maybe the county's going to do it. They want to be saddled with this. But if the board doesn't approve it, then no, we're not going to have to pay $4.4 million. We can continue to repair the sprinkler system as we've done in the past. And a lot of repairs have already been done on the sprinkler system over the years. We're talking about throwing all that money that we spent on the repairs out to put in a whole new system. It doesn't make sense. There's no savings for water and wastewater in sending the water over here to the pond out there. Okay? They have to run a line for completed, the water is completely treated, right? It's otherwise going in the river. To send it over here, to put a line in and everything, the capital cost for that is $500,000. If Ocean Pines were to pay to put the sprinkler system in themselves and just use all the water that's out here in the pond, and that's where the water comes from right now. They draw water out of the pond, and that's used for the sprinkler system. A lot of water out there, and it's only when in the drought where they put water in from the well here on site. We currently have a very efficient plant. We pay some of the highest rates in the state for our wastewater system, as we should, and we should be very proud that the water that goes into the river is very clean. Ironically, and this is true of all golf courses, but we send the water over here. What we're doing is spraying out clean water on the golf course where it's filling up with pesticides, herbicides, and the like. And then that flows back into the canals, into this pond. And of some concern is the aquifer from which we draw our water runs right underneath this golf course. And that's where our water is coming from. And all the years of putting fertilizers and herbicides and pesticides on here, it's only 70 feet down. I got to be concerned about that too. So the state prohibits us spraying the wastewater on the course during the winter months, during any non-growing seasons. And so it can't be used then. In the spring, obviously, one of the things is we have a problem with the golf course flooding. There's another $2 million, I think, that's sort of being held in abeyance for work to be done there to mitigate the flooding. Also, in the fall, we're not using it. So we're only talking about a pretty small window of time that the wastewater could even be used here. And it's for like about 2% of the volume that goes out of the wastewater plant now into the river. So for 2% of clean water being sent over into the river, which is good, it gets very diluted, it's safe, we're spending $4.4 million, or asking the county to spend $4.4 million on our behalf. It just doesn't make sense, okay? If we really did need to put in a new sprinkler system, we would save $1 million right off the bat if Ocean Pines did it, because there's not going to be a bond taken out by the county and us to be charged back for it. And that interest on that bond is going to amount to $1 million. So there's $1 million in savings right away for us if it's done through Ocean Pines, or if we just continue to invest in maintaining the system, which this past year has not been much. There's even a question, I think, of whether we need it. There's a video on actually oceanpines.com or oceanpinesforum.com. And in that, from a May 4th, 2019 board meeting, there's a video. It shows where the director of golf says, he said, there were no plans in the near future for any upgrade to our irrigation system. He said rumors that a new system was needed are not true, but the system does need routine maintenance every year. He mentions that some areas of the course had a newer system than the original. He expressed no concerns about the existing system needing replacement. That was on May 4th, 2019. There's a video of that up on Ocean Pines Forum. If you're interested in it, it shows that. The membership here overwhelmingly supported limiting the board's authority to expend more than $1 million. I think that gives you a feel for what the membership feels about large expenditures. If you're going to spend $4.4 million, then I think it should go to a referendum. I wouldn't recommend doing that because it's going to obviously get rejected. You know it's going to get rejected, and this going through the county and asking them to do it, the tax all falling back on the Ocean Pines membership share is just not right. It gets to, Doug, you were talking about the transparency that we just talked about. We need transparency. We need integrity. We need the board to do the right thing here.
Your 5 minutes are up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hmm?
Your 5 minutes are up. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think Frank wants to respond.
Let me respond because just as a matter of record, I've been reading everything. I read everything on the forum. Okay, first, I don't know where the numbers are coming from, but I can assure everybody in this community, sitting here as a director, I have seen absolutely no numbers beyond the initial numbers that were given to us by the county. Number two, I want everybody to understand that the county has said to us very clearly, based on the information that we have given you to this point in time through the town halls, through our interaction with their general manager, would you support this project? We have said, based on the information we have received at this point in time, we will do it. Okay? There are a lot of questions still to be answered. Okay, number three, as far as we don't need an irrigation system, it's going to cost this, it's going to cost this. I will assure everybody in this community that before we vote, before this director votes on it, we will have from an engineering firm an estimate as to when we will have to replace the current irrigation system and what it will cost. Number two, when we do that, we will compare that based on what it will cost every homeowner in this association, all 8,452 of them, what it will cost if we do it on our own as a one-time shot or piecemeal versus what it will cost every homeowner in this association if the county does it. Also want to assure everybody, this is really no different than Comcast or Mediacom coming to us, asking us for an easement to put something down on our property. The county has said, it is a county project, not an Ocean Pines project. We did not ask the county for this, and we're dealing with it exactly as that. So we have to deal with the easement issues. So until the county comes forth with another proposal which answers those questions, we will not act on it. When we act on it, you as a homeowner will know to the penny what it will cost you and when we would do this work if we had to do it on our own.
John, you have a comment?
Yeah, Larry, Doug, Boyd, thank you. And, sir, thank you for that analysis and everything. And it's, the fact that we and I am a homeowner, also that we have disability in our great republic is really good. But with that said, I do, and I saw it on the forum, and I was there when the Golf Pro, whatever the date was in 2019, I actually asked him to give an update on it because there was some rumors, whatever term you want to use, you being plural, about some secret that we're going to go out there and spend $1 million or whatever on this irrigation. So that's what he was trying to do at that point in time. So with that said, is this: it does take a lot of maintenance. It's like anything else. Do we want to replace or we want to keep? Hopefully, we maintain, whether it's a building or that. What you're going to see and what came out in the DMA Light study, and certainly will tie in, and you'll hear us talk about during BNF, is the irrigation system actually comes up for replacement over the next, I think it's 5 years. So you're going to see that in the numbers that we present for capital spending. So obviously something like this, the Golf Pro was talking about at that point in time, knowing that there was this replacement over the next 5 or 6 years coming up, starting with the next year. So I just want to try to explain what he was trying to say on that day. But, I understand all your points. Hopefully this helped with some of it. The other thing is the 4.4, to be honest with you, I'm with Frank. We haven't seen anything concrete or anything, but every discussion that I had or that the county had with me, the number was 3.4 million. 600,000 of that 3.4 was the piping and everything to get it from the plant to the site here. So the irrigation system here, 2.8. Certainly that study that we were part of when we brought out they brought in an outside company that they paid for, they being a county, we utilized to update our DMA study. Hopefully that helps to just give you some information, sir.
I appreciate that, John. I think that you're right. It is 3.4
Yeah, whatever.
for the sprinkler system.
Oh, million for interest. I'm sorry.
But
I see it.
There's another million
Oh, I see now.
because the county would have to
I got you.
essentially take out a mortgage, and the cost of that mortgage is $1 million. That's the point I was making. So that gets you up to the 4.4.
Yeah.
And that's what the members are going to have to pay. We are going to get charged $4.4 million for the sprinkler system. And I think if the members here are going to get charged $4.4 million for a sprinkler system, they should have say in that. And you know, that's all I'm asking for is, do you really think, you know, I'm just asking again, transparency and integrity, do you really think that the members are going to agree to $4.4 million for a sprinkler system? When we have one that's currently working just fine, and yes, it needs maintenance.
Right.
Anybody that has a sprinkler system knows that, hey, the mowers go over it, they break a head, roots get in it, you've got to maintain the sprinkler system. And I'm not against that, but I am against the $4.4 million hit for something like this. I think the stuff that the board's doing, and again, came up in this survey about spending money on the bridge and making the Ocean Lines community look great. That's what the survey showed us. That's what the residents here want.
All right, thank you. Are there any further public comments?
Hi, I'm Richard Malone. My wife and I just moved here in April.
What's your address, please?
45 Nottingham. First off, we've done this like you're doing. We were at HOA for just a little small condo. I can't imagine what you all go through. I appreciate it. 100%. We had 28 units. So, I mean, absolutely. My only complaint at this point would be maybe it's communications. Because here tonight, or here this morning, I saw about the penalties that are out. But we have several neighbors on our street that have cars. One's got a couple of cars and a motorcycle. They're disabled, not tagged, been sitting there for so far almost a year that I'm aware of, probably for a year or more before that. But we feel like nothing's being done. Obviously, there's probably things going on in the background, but we just don't see it. So that's our complaint really, is to know that something's being done, to see that something's being done. You know, what kind of time frame are we looking at when someone's got a front yard full of junk?
I appreciate your comment.
I'm going to give you this business card. This is the info.oceanpines.org contact line. Our system is a complaint-driven system, and so if you're seeing violations, please call that number. The
Okay.
violations
I
will
think
get
we
to
have.
the right place.
Yeah.
All right, so
Yeah,
John,
I think
John,
yeah.
you want to address this, or you or Linda?
So actually, sir, I'm sorry. So actually, I think you did put something that I just mentioned to Linda before that I recollect your name. Linda's going to follow up, and we're going to see where it is, because I do believe you put something in. We think it's in legal. Let us just follow up, and Linda will get back to you, and I'll be copied on it.
Okay.
Okay, but I did recognize the name, and I was mentioning to Linda that I think you already did. But it is being worked on. Right? We'll give you an update.
All right.
Okay.
Let me
No,
let me respond a little more on this. And you asked how long does this take? Well, you know, I'm not going to give any names or locations, but you know, we do have some residents who we've been fighting this type of issue for years. We've been to court. We've got orders from the court. They'll move the vehicles away and then bring them back, and then we have to start the process all over again. So we are trying to be aggressive on this. We hear what you're saying, and it's not a new complaint. Unfortunately, and particularly now, I don't want to blame everything on COVID, but last year the courts were closed down. We have, trying to get something done in the court system is very difficult. Our law firm, we have two different law firms that work on these things. I can give you an example of without giving names or locations, of a community member who has a large motorhome that parks it in the driveway, which is not permitted. When we come out, we give a notice. It gets moved, and then a week or two later, it's back there again. So we hear what you're saying. It's a constant battle with our CPI department and with our lawyers. So, I think we're being as aggressive as we can be.
All right.
Frank, did you have a comment?
Yeah, just so you have an understanding of the system. When a CPI violation is recorded by the CPI department, the person your neighbor with the untagged vehicle, has 30 days to correct that. At the end of that 30 days, if they do not correct it, the general manager has the authority to have our attorney go to court and get a temporary restraining order for them to stop that. Okay? If it's a repeat violation, the general manager can go to court immediately. It doesn't have to wait to 30 days. The problem appears community-wide, and fortunately we're dealing with a very, very, very small percentage of homes, right? The minute that we institute that, it is like writing you and every other homeowner here a $1,500 ticket because we pay for the court costs. The minute they move that and they go to court, and the court looks at us and says, there's no violation, what are you here wasting our time for? Okay? Clock restarts. They move the motorhome back. We go to the attorney again, write ourselves another $1,500 ticket, and we play the shell game. And like I say, fortunately, it's with a very small percentage. So we have done, under our current governing documents, as much as we can to address that. And unfortunately, when it goes to court, that's a low priority item. And it's an item that's easily, if you want to game the system, it's easily gamed. We have in certain areas, within the next several months, they'll be voting on changing our restrictive covenants for short-term rentals. That'll include something that most sections of Ocean Pines do not have, and that'll include the ability to fine. Because at the end of the day, what we have found out is when you go to somebody and say, we'll go take you to court, they know that who's paying for that, which is us, not them. We also know that we tell them we have the ability to fine, that they know they're going to be paying for it, not us. Right. And that's the way that it'll be addressed in the longer term.
Okay. Thank you. Again, thank you.
Thank you.
Did 28 units.
Any further public comments?
Last month, I made here some remarks about the president and the vice president. Unfortunately, only one paper wrote a story about me, and that was Bob Stroud with the Progress, one of the best people in Ocean Pines. I had quite a few calls about my statement. I can tell you 80% from the statement was in my favor. Some people call me a pin in the butt of what it is. It cannot go, President, under you administration or under you leadership. 8 people quit under you time. They're 2 nice people quitting. It is not what you wrote in the paper. Somewhere on the line is something wrong. That happened with the other people too. I told you the vice president went behind a lot of people not to mention myself too. So what I'm saying for the year 2022, we have to get a new start without you and the vice president. We cannot go that way, the way you running the board. And I made a remark about the lawyer. Why did we got a lawyer 200 miles away from Ocean Pine? Twice he advised you wrong with Northgate and with the last election. Cost us money, at least $25,000 before the insurance kicked in. And I tell you one thing, I only voted for one man this time in the election. I hope that the lawyer of the judge is going to be in favor so that you people learn a lesson. And don't come after the meeting and tell me I don't quit. I ask you to quit. You're not the right man for Ocean Pine.
Well, Dutch, I'm going to respond to you this month. I didn't respond to you last month out of respect, but I did talk to you after the meeting and told you I will not be resigning. I don't know who these 8 people are that you think that I forced to resign. You need to get your facts straight. I don't care. I'm quite honestly, I'm not concerned. I don't make decisions on my own. The board made decisions on the litigation we're involved in, and whether or not you like it or not, the board made a decision. I don't make decisions on my own. You have 7 people up here who make the decisions. So I will not be resigning, and I can guarantee you that the vice president, your time is up. Now it's my time. Your time is up, Dutch. My time now. I can guarantee you that that the vice president or I will not be resigning. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Your time is up. Any further public comments? Seeing none, I'm going to close the floor to open to public comments. We have a purchase request, John.
Okay, thank you, Larry. Linda's going to take this, but this is coming from me.
Okay. Okay, we received 3 bids that the board has in front of them in regards to the upcoming fiscal year bulkhead replacement contract. The top bid or the best bid that the staff is recommending is Fisher Marine for $850,000, and they are a reputable company that's worked with Ocean Pines in the past. It will include 11 locations as specified before, and the other bids were actually $240,000 and $280,000 higher than the Fisher bid.
So requesting authorization from the staff recommendation of going with Fisher Marine, $850,000 for approximately 2,000 linear feet of bulkhead.
Is there a motion to approve the purchase request for $850,000 for Fisher Marine for bulkhead replacement?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
And is there any discussion?
Yeah, just a question. John, compared to last year, what is the increase per lineal foot or the percentage increase that we're seeing for the bulkheads?
Yeah, no, it's an excellent question, and I should have pointed out. So last year, by going early and certain other things and going with Fisher, we came in at $355, Frank, a linear foot. Everybody else was well over $450 or if not higher in that ballpark. This year, and we've been negotiating all the way up to the last hour, the last day or two. This one's coming in at $425, but every other bid, as Linda mentioned, was well exceeding that. We did mention last year that this is going to continue to go up. So it's $425 versus $355 last year.
And just off the cuff, it just seems to me that that's going to have an impact on the waterfront lots. Is there any idea at this point in time what that might be?
So it was actually, and I do have it, I would like just a little more time where, as I said, we just did this, but right now, based upon what we're looking to do. And one of the reasons we're doing 2,000 linear feet versus last year doing 3,000 is we did struggle. We did struggle to get it completed by May, by the holiday. It went over. It's something we don't want to happen here, but with COVID, with the same challenges we have getting workers and all that stuff, we took it down to the 2,000 linear feet. Now, obviously, this material we're using is now for 50 years, not like the 30 years, so it kind of all fits in. But right now, this would fit into the proposed budget that I have. However, then we do have to look at the DMA study, but the bulkheads is separate. But right now, it wouldn't have an increase in the assessment on bulkheads.
Thank you.
Doug?
Yeah, John, I think you sort of answered the question I was getting ready to ask. Number one, we've got 1.4 mil in the bulkhead, so clearly we can we could fund that expense. The question would be, do we need to look at in next year's budget any change in our contributions to the reserve funding based on this spend? It sounds like it might not be a change in the in the assessment, but would it change what gets contributed to the reserve fund, or is any sense that we might have an increase in what we contribute to the reserve funding in next year's budget?
Yeah, and Doug, that's an excellent question. And when you say the next year, I'm thinking you're talking about after this proposed budget that we're going to bring forward. But there's a couple of things. And again, there is a lot of moving parts. Lumber went up, then it's coming down a little bit. And now we have oil going up, which affects the vinyl and all that stuff, labor and all that. If I was to look, a year and a half out, I believe it's going to continue to increase per linear foot. And I do believe it would have an effect on the assessment like 2 years from now, yes.
Is there any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor of the purchase request, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And the motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, there are no CPI violations, and there is no unfinished business at this point. New business, we have a couple discussions. Amy?
My discussion topic is board meetings and town halls to be held in person and simultaneously videotaped live, allowing public comments to be received. An important goal for me as I serve on the board is to increase community involvement. Ocean Pines homeowners include many part-time owners and full-time working homeowners who cannot always attend in-person meetings. I'm glad to see you all here today. We still try to have meetings on Saturdays and Wednesday evenings, but using a live hybrid approach would allow people at home to still call in and have remote public input. Bernie stole some of my thunder. The survey showed that homeowners want a say in the community. One of the challenges they wanted us to address is transparency, and having live meetings would help with that. I talked to Josh even about doing a tutorial that would show homeowners how to call in and how to use the system. But again, the survey showed that our public is much more savvy than we give them credit for. The survey only had, I think, 65 hard copies. So I think now is the time to revisit this issue. I met with John and Josh. They've been looking into it. One of the reasons we haven't done this in the past, as John referred to, is we have not had a dedicated meeting space that allows a lot of people to attend and call in. John is already making this room better for that by putting the glass doors. And he talked about putting acoustics in here and having this be a dedicated space. The other option was also to do the acetate room. In doing my research, I feel like this room is the best room to test out because the cost is not as much because we already have the projector and everything here. We're going to have the glass doors. So the cost to do this room would be the acoustics, which is about $8,000 to $10,000, and then the audio system. One of my concerns going into this is I, as a homeowner, love that Josh is doing the video indexing so that when the meeting is posted, you can go back and you can say, oh, what did they say about this? And you can go right to the spot. Josh assured me he would still be doing all of that. So I think we can come up with a friendly system for the community and a cost efficient way to do this if we just concentrate on this room. So that's kind of what I want to bring up to the board today, if we can start and go ahead with this.
Amy, you're correct. We've talked about this a couple times. My concern about using this room is for the occasions when we do have a large board meeting, the annual meeting, for example. We've had annual meetings that filled up the Assateague room. If we're going to go ahead and set this up, my preference would be to have it done at the Assateague room.
Okay.
Scheduling meetings over here. This is a great place to have meetings, but it's a smaller space and generally it's acceptable. Acoustics, in my mind, are the biggest problem. Quality of the equipment and the acoustics in the past is why we really stopped doing the live broadcasts, because they were problematic. But if we can get those problems solved in the Assateague room, I would support the changes over there. I don't know that acoustics need to be dealt with in this building overall, not just for board meetings, but for the banquets that are held. And so I know John's looking into that too. But
Okay.
I think if we're going to invest the money to do live meetings, I think we should be looking at the Assateague room.
Okay, so I think the Assateague room, John, was going to be another $15,000 because we needed to put the video equipment in, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
Doug?
Yeah, and I'm all
The
for it.
projector, I'm sorry, Doug, right, the projector and I know what you meant, yes.
So I'm all for this. I really do think would be beneficial to have the ability to have a live meeting, streamed online, and the ability to interact with the membership. Quite frankly, unless I miss my guess, I think the approach of this hybrid solution using Microsoft Teams is probably going to be the solution. However, I just, in doing our due diligence, when we negotiated the contract with Comcast, we already had it with MediaCom, we have a community channel that comes with it. Now, I think there's probably some technical challenges associated with it, but we used to broadcast the meetings over the community channel many years ago. So I guess the answer would be, at the very least, we should look into it and just see if it's something that's feasible, or at least find out, say, back then it was okay, but now when you compare it to Microsoft Teams, probably not a good solution. I just think the due diligence would be, let's look into that, because that came with the contract that we had with Comcast, and again, was already there with MediaCom. So again, just due diligence. I just like that information.
Okay.
Is there any other discussion? All right, so I guess more work needs to be done.
Yeah.
Okay. And so the next item on the agenda is another discussion topic. Colette?
Yeah, this topic is what to do about the future of the search committee. And this issue has been studied by the bylaws work group, which is no longer operating, and has been handed over to the bylaws advisory committee to study and provide us with some recommendation. And so I'm going to ask that we suspend Robert's Rules of Orders and let the chair of the bylaws committee come forth with the position paper and recommendations from their work.
I'll go ahead and suspend Robert's rules. Jim?
Jim? Thank you.
Good morning. Just as a bit of background information, in the materials you received for this meeting, there's a reference to Resolution M09. That is a resolution that it's a board resolution in the Book of Resolutions, which implements the search committee operations and the search process as it's described in the bylaws. That should have perhaps been more identified in your materials. It has no real consequence to what's being talked about this morning. We're not talking about revising that resolution. We're talking about the bylaws themselves and the search committee. In the materials, we make reference, the bylaws and resolutions committee makes reference to there may be revisions to the bylaws that can improve the
the operation or performance of the search committee. And we did not go into details on that. A reason being that the real topic is the future of the search committee and what direction it goes. But one of the things that could be considered that could assist in the search committee process is to address the situation where getting members to be on that committee has been difficult at times. The pandemic, of course, did not help that over the last couple of years. But even since the creation of the committee in the 2008 bylaws, there have been instances in which the committee was either not really not established as it is required by February of each year, or it was done on a late basis and perhaps not well done. So we did not address in the materials you have specific revisions for the committee, but we do think it should be understood that one of the ways that you could address some of that problem would be to change the appointment structure of the committee. Instead of it being an annual appointment of a committee, make it more like or the same as other committees within the association, which all go on a term basis and reappointment to additional terms as a committee member may desire. For example, it's a 3-year initial term, potential for a 2-year second term, and then a third and final 1-year term. And of course, vacancies occur at the end of terms. Vacancies can occur during a term on the personal circumstances of a committee member. But those committees continue to exist and vacancies are filled. That's a consideration for the search committee. There may be pros and cons on that, but that's a consideration that the board could consider. Beyond that, as I said, the materials indicate that our various discussions on the topic, and we got to a conclusion that what is being determined is the search committee future. And the search committee was, as I said, established in the 2008 bylaws by approval of the membership. And we do not want to get into a situation where we're proposing radical changes of one kind or another, in particular, abolishing the committee and going some other direction. We didn't feel that our committee was in a position to be doing that kind of thing without there being some further guidance from the board of directors. And that's the reason for our request for this discussion this morning.
Thank you. And I'm just going to go on record as saying that the recommendation to change the structure of the committee to a term basis is what I would favor, as opposed to the abolishment of the committee itself. I think there are a lot of people, the survey itself, out of 1,838 respondents, 514 people expressed interest in greater volunteer opportunities. That's a lot of people. And I've got to believe that some of those 514 may be willing to serve on an ongoing committee to assist in populating our board of directors with qualified candidates. We have a lot of content that is available for that committee to use to publicize the volunteer opportunities on our committees as well as our board of directors. And I think a committee that is a standing committee that has continuity of membership over several years is going to be our best option for coming up with effective methods for recruitment of candidates who are qualified, and also, quite frankly, preparing people who are interested in becoming qualified and ready to serve on the board. So that's, where I'm leaning with respect to this question.
Yeah, I've given it some thought. Look at it from two perspectives. Number one, adherence to governing documents. So clearly that should be our priority. If it's stated in the governing documents, we need to abide by it. The second part of it is the practicality of it as well. And let me start out by saying I'm in agreement. I think that might be a pretty reasonable solution to have it as a standing committee. But one could argue that, well, we haven't had a quote unquote active search committee for the past several elections, yet we were still able to get, candidates and so on and so forth. So is it an absolute requirement? In other words, if we don't have a committee, we won't get candidates. I don't think you could make that statement either. However, on the other side of it, I recall this had to be about 5 years ago when there was a search committee. And one of the things that had happened, I remember because I got invited to, they brought all the candidates into a meeting, a preparatory meeting, and they had these candidates ask existing, I was the only director there, ask an existing board member, questions about, anything and everything. And I thought that was beneficial. And I think for that reason, I probably lean towards saying, let's have a committee because we can get some information. In other words, there's active and passive. In other words, actively people might try to, get information, but I bet you a lot of times people are just passive. They're just like, well, if you're not telling me, I'll just go on with what I know and go with it. If we give them an opportunity to be active, by scheduling a meeting to say all candidates can come here and discuss general topics about, volunteering to be on the board of directors, that might be something that would motivate some folks to, really do it. And that could be a task that's taken up by the committee.
Amy?
I agree. One of the things the committee had talked about was the search committee just doesn't get candidates. They also act as a contact point for when prospective candidates have questions. And I think that's important. The committee had also even discussed having former directors, like Doug said, be on the committee to help with that process. And as a new person, I thought that was an excellent idea. I think having someone there for a 3-year term will really help.
Yeah, I would just like to add that we have, I think, 15 committees, advisory committees. And, today you heard the incredibly creative and insightful work that was done by the Strategic Planning Committee with respect to the survey. The Communications Committee has done some tremendous work, brought a lot of creativity and insightfulness to their work. And I think that we have incredible talent within this community that is interested in coming forth and helping us with some of the vexing problems that we have. And this is certainly getting good board members is definitely a vexing problem that we face. We do get candidates, but we have struggled each year to get the number of candidates that is recommended in our bylaws. So I really am in favor of recruiting some people for a standing committee.
Any other comments? So at this point, Jim, I think you heard probably the committee should still exist, but the structure should change. And of course, that'll be a change to the resolution. Yep.
Anything changed in the bylaws.
And the right.
Flow down to the resolution.
That's right. Okay.
And so I guess we're asking your committee to offer us language to change that resolution.
I should say it.
Would your committee then be willing to offer the board language to change that resolution in keeping with this? Thank you.
Frank?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Jim. I should have said this. I think that some changes with the committee, including a standing committee, are in order. But, we always talk about transparency. And I've always tried to give a little heads up before I do something, particularly things that will be controversial. Okay. As far as I'm concerned, this board is on the clock. This past election has shown too many gaps in our existing system where too many problems can come up that could be avoided. Okay? And quite frankly, the only reason I haven't had said this prior to this is because we're waiting for the judge to make his determination. I will tell you at the February meeting, I'm going to put forth motions for a referendum to make a whole bunch of changes to our election process, our selection process, and our qualification process. Okay? At that point in time, irrespective of what the other clock says, my clock has run out.
Any further comments? What?
Frank, I just would like to advise you that the Bylaws Committee is also working on some language changes for those processes. And is it this week you're going to be meeting and discussing some of that? So they will have some advice back to us for that, I would imagine, soon.
We could be working at almost cross purposes, and makes me a little uncomfortable.
I'll send you a heads up on what I'm going to do.
I can't say anything more.
Yeah, I'll send you a heads up on what I'm going to do.
And the only comment that I have here is that, we had a discussion about the bylaws and these changes 2 years ago. And my recommendation at that time is that we have council review it. And as it turned out, with the issues that we are facing in the current litigation, that's probably what should have happened. So it's going to be my recommendation after we receive the recommendation from the bylaws committee that this all be reviewed with council to make sure that the appropriate changes that council also thinks need to be made, and that whatever changes we make are clear and defendable in the courtroom. So, that's the position that I'm going to take. Is there any further discussion? All right, I'm going to reinstitute Robert's rules. Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it. Okay, we have 2 appointments today, and we'll vote on them together. First one is William Bernard, first term Rexham Park, and the second one is Ray Foreman, first term Rexham Park. Is there a motion to approve the appointments?
So moved.
Second. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? I have no further business. The meeting, can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting's adjourned.